So you've heard about this thing called Dungeons and Dragons. Whether it be online through your friends, Dungeons and Dragons is exploding, and we're gonna have a lot of new players. Now, here on Game Master's Arsenal, we're looking at training and equipping future DMs. But most DMs start as a player. So understanding as a DM how to get players into it, and as a player, learning how to play so that you can eventually move into that position as a DM or stay as a player and just have a blast with it. So that's what we're doing today. We're kind of giving the brief overview of how you get started in D&D, how you and the easiest ways to do it without, bogging yourself down in months of reading. So, I'm your GM Isaiah, and this is Game Master's Arsenal. Roll initiative. Now, getting started in D&D can seem scary. A lot of players give up because they don't have the group to play with. They don't know where to start, and a lot of dungeon masters are looking for experienced players. Now, there's two ways of going about this. There's the becoming the dungeon master immediately way, and then there's of course being the player first. I highly encourage being the player first. Adventure leagues and store events are a good place for a new player to get involved and say, hey, I'm a new player learning to play. And of course, there's a lot of dungeon masters who are okay with new players and want new players because new players will propel the game forward, and of course, a DM can get away with a little bit more with them. They're less likely to be rules lawyers than experienced players. So, finding your table is one thing. Hey, it's easier than it seems. You just got to ask around. There's also groups online that are welcoming to new players, so you just got to do some research, see if you can find a group. And if you're able to, and you want to start playing, of course, you got to look at your resources. We got to look at the player's handbook. This thing is 200 pages, 230 pages. I'm gonna say most of that you don't need to read. A lot of players get daunted by that. I have to read and understand this 250-page book to learn to play. No, not even close. Um, in the book, there are two things. There are resources, and there are statistics. The game is a lot of math. So I'm breaking it between required reading and what you can skim in your free time. Required reading is what you have to know and understand to play the game. You don't need to know intricately how to do it, but you at least need to have a basic concept. As far as required reading, the first thing you need to understand is how ability scores work. I like the tomato method. The tomato method explains ability scores very well, very quickly, and very easily. It's good for a player to know what ability scores you might be using for certain situations, and for DMs to kind of quickly decide on some instances what ability score you would use for a check. So strength, how well you can smash a tomato; dexterity, how well you can throw a tomato; constitution, how well you can manage eating a bad potato; intelligence, knowing that a tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable; wisdom, knowing that you don't put a tomato in a fruit salad; and of course, charisma, being able to sell a tomato-based fruit salad. If somebody immediately says, that a tomato-based fruit salad is just salsa, he's the bard. So those are a quick way to understand ability scores, and as a DM, that's a great resource. As far as required reading goes, um, I I'm gonna give you page numbers, but I'm gonna explain behind these page numbers. So I'm gonna start with in the introduction, there is a basic how to play on page 6. It's not completely required. It's more of a, this is how the game is formulated. This is how it normally runs. These are advantages, disadvantages, things like that. Explains different things quickly. And so you'll just kind of skim that and read that. It just lets you know what information basically the game and how it plays. And then of course chapter 7. Um, I know chapter 7's another one that you want to read, but you don't need to like memorize. None of this is memorization. The DM handles that. Ability scores and how to play in chapter 7. And then of course the only other information that you need is the class that you want to play. You just have to read that. So if you want to come in and play the fighter, you just need to read the fighter and understand the fighter. I don't expect you to go through all the classes and be like, I read all the classes and all the races. Skim the races, find the race you want to play. Find the class you want to play. If you want to play the druid, go ahead and then kind of understand how they play. Of course, you also just need to read the spells that you're going to choose for that, whether that be the spells for the entire class, if you want to go that in depth, or you just want to kind of go with your domain spells and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to start with. Of course, I'm going to let my DM help me pick a cantrip and a couple first levels if we're playing that early. A resource that I recommend is spell cards. You don't have to have them, but they're very useful. If you're playing online, you don't need them. These spells are usually in a compendium. So the resources for spell cards and ability cards for marshals are just quick and easy way, a quick and dirty way to have your stuff ready at any time. You know, I want to do this. Okay, this is what this does. Just look at the card, set it down. Okay. Then of course you kind of move into the first game. Once you get your party together, you kind of understand the game a little bit. Meet with your DM, get started. He is the one. He or she, the DM is the one to guide the first players. They'll start them off with session 0. They'll kind of explain how this campaign runs. If your DM brushes over session 0, kind of ask them if they're planning on doing one. I'm going to talk about session 0 as an important measure later, but I think overall, if it's a close enough group that plays long enough, they don't really need a session 0. But if it's a new party, I recommend it. As a player, you should recommend it as well. It's I call it setting terms of engagement, and of course, like the DM's gonna guide. You may not feel as comfortable with roleplay, and if it's not a roleplay heavy game, just a nice little dungeon crawl, that's fine. You're gonna enjoy the dungeon crawling aspect. But if you guys get into the roleplay, it's fine not to be comfortable with it. Just kind of watch for a second and bring yourself closer. Eventually, you'll get a little bit more comfortable with it and kind of start engaging. The other players might move you to engage as well. That's also really good. Also, like if you're the one engaging with the game the most, kind of encourage your players to engage a little bit. It's very helpful. It's a very collaborative thing. The DM and you can't do everything, so I consider D&D to be closer to a 5-man band. You are not the hero of the story. I know some of you out there who have been playing the game for a little bit don't understand this. You are not the hero of the story. You personally are not the hero of the story. Your party is, the group is. I'd say D&D is closer to a 5-man band than a strict hero story. So don't come in here expecting to be the superhero who's the protagonist. Be concerned if the DM picks somebody to be a protagonist. You're a 5-man band. And so you're gonna kind of find your role in that. And your classes help determine your roles, but are not the end-all be-all. For instance, the bard may do the most talking because, you know, he's got the highest charisma, so he gets to do the persuasion checks. But he may not be the face of the party. You might be the one that introduces the group as you're the cleric when it deals with those matters. So everybody kind of finds their own role within the party, whether that in roleplay and in combat. You'll kind of figure that out through your first go. And of course, the last little thing, remember it's a game. You're all there to have fun. If you went through all this and you play it and you're like, I'm not having fun, try a different group. Maybe it's the group, maybe it's but if it's the game itself, don't feel bad about dropping from a campaign. You're all there to have fun. I get it. You don't want to disappoint other people, but let them know, hey, this game's not for you. And that's fine. Have some fun with the game. If you're not having fun, leave the table. That's what matters the most. And if you've got a bad DM and everybody's not having fun, maybe it's time to find another DM. Because the players are not always to blame. And the DM is also not always to blame. If other party members are having problems, that's when you kind of bring it up to the DM, bring it up to your other players. Behave like an adult. You're all there to play and have fun. So that's the most important part. I know that's very cliche, have fun. But it's the truth. It's a game. Have fun with the game. The DM puts in a lot of work as well, so a little like courtesy thing is bring the DM snacks. A hungry DM is an evil DM. You're about 30% more likely to get TPK'd if he hasn't had a snack in 2 hours. So remember that bit. I mean, that's all we got to talk about. That's an easy, dirty, and quick way to get into the game. At least to get you getting you guided into the game. Um, because guiding you guys into the game is the big thing. Because this is everybody does it differently. This is just an overview of, hey, this is what you should read. This is what you can read. Um, and then of course, just a quick way, things to remember as you're playing the game. Everything I've got for you guys tonight. Of course, I'm your GM Isaiah. This is where we're gonna leave it tonight.